Well, when I was a little boy sitting on my mama's knee.
Hello, welcome to Going Deeper. My name is Marcie Sclove, and today I'm sitting with Johnie Sanders, who is the homelessness organizer for Arise for Social Justice in Springfield, Massachusetts. Johnie is also a poet, and we first met at a poetry workshop that Johnie was co-leading for the Truth School for Social Change Leadership. So thank you for coming. Welcome, Johnie.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Sure. I like to start with these interviews asking about your early life and how your early life, your childhood, your experiences sort of put you on the path to do the kind of social justice work that you do now.
Sure. Being a homelessness organizer, when I see families coming to Arise for Social Justice, I automatically see my mother and her children walking in, into Arise if they have nowhere to stay, because we've experienced a lot of traumatizing moments in my early childhood. We've experienced homelessness after my mother left my father. I grew up in a very abusive home where there was domestic violence and at the hands of my father, and there was mental abuse, sexual abuse. And so when I see these families come in with these issues, I automatically, it takes me back to my childhood, and it makes me want to help them even more because I've been through it and I understand what it's like to be homeless and just to feel like there's no hope.
Wow. But it's kind of impressive that I can imagine, having gone through that yourself, that it would be triggering in some way. And so it seems like instead it brings out more compassion, more empathy. Do you ever feel like, oh my God, I can't really listen to this story or that story because it is too much?
Yeah, there are some things that triggers emotions more than others, but I've learned to just take those experiences and use them for good, to help others instead of letting them consume me. I use it to help others overcome the same experiences that I've been through.
That's really amazing. That's very, very interesting. So your sister, Ruby Lee Sanders, she wrote this book, 11th-Hour Chronicles.
Yes.
And I looked at it partly because it is a novel, but it's pretty much an autobiography, right?
Yes.
And you're in here, kind of around the edges. Yeah. So what was your experience reading this book and hearing her description of life as a kid?
It actually, there were parts that I read that affected me. I've cried. I've done some laughing. But I just look at my sister as someone who had such a huge amount of courage for even writing this book to help others.
Yeah.
There's because the book itself, it addressed many social issues that we've been through. Like
Absolutely.
I said, domestic violence, homelessness, sexual abuse, even things like relationships and just being involved with people who are not feeding you your spirit, but just putting you down, So it addresses many things that are important to us in life, And the way she wrote it, it gives you a guide. It gives you a guide to what to look out for in relationships, signs that should tell you to, put a pause on an abusive relationship or a potential abusive relationship. So she lets us see the warning signs, and she's very transparent in the book, letting people know that although you make mistakes of letting people use you or take advantage of you, you can tell others about it, and they can overcome.
Yeah, yeah. Also, when I was reading it, there was this aspect of like not sharing her truth for a long time, keeping it secret, what was going on with her husband, at the time, and that, how difficult that was, and then how finally, she did share it, like with your mom and different people, and got support.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So one of the things when I first met you at the workshop was about the sort of poetry and the use of poetry to, what does poetry do for you? How is that in your life?
Wow, poetry has been like a saving grace for my life. I've been through many trials, many tribulations, and poetry was a way to help me escape or just release some of that I had bottled up inside of me. I would write better than I can even verbalize things. Even in my childhood, when I would get into arguments with my sister, they would always win because I was never really verbal. But I would go back later and I would write how I felt on a piece of paper, and then I was able to express everything on paper and turn, my issues into poetry.
Sure.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, that was a very good workshop and useful in seeing another tool that we can use, for ourselves personally when we're doing hard work that can be pretty depleting.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, can you start by giving us a little background about Arise for Social Justice?
Oh, yes. So Arise is this great organization that started 34 years ago with 4 women around like a kitchen table like this, who are on welfare, and they were organizing for welfare rights. And then all of a sudden they became this organization, and then they started organizing for poor people's rights, and it just became bigger and bigger, and then they just ran off with it. And today we address the same things, but now it's expanded so much that we address many manifestations of social injustice. And so we advocate and provide services around housing, homelessness, criminal justice. We have an ILF committee, which is the Injustice Liberation Front, and they work on issues like they help people through police brutality cases, discrimination, and most recently, we've really been taking a chunk of environmental justice work, and we've been working on that. So it's a really community-based organization where people who come in, they feel like Arise is theirs. It's not like they're walking into like a strict agency with all these rules, and they feel like they're not just a number, but they're a family. And we never address people as clients. We address them as our peers, because every one of us who, all the staff at Arise has been through something, has fought something, has battled with something. And so we let them know that we understand where you're coming from, and we tell them that you can overcome. And so aside from providing services and advocacy, we also educate and encourage people to build political power for themselves, to find your own voice and fight against these underlying issues that are causing these social problems. It's like we want to get rid of the Band-Aid and the wound.
Yeah. That's
so,
a really good way to say it.
So we want to get down to those deep-rooted problems, the policies that are causing people to suffer, and so we encourage everyone who come in to use their voice, to march with us down at the State House, to, call your legislators and, and be a part of the social change. So that's what Arise is about. And it says it in the name, Arise for social justice. We want people to stand up and use their voices and be part of the political change. Yes.
I had the good fortune of looking at that long interview on your website, Michael Ann, and her last name is Busey?
Busey, yes.
Busey. And one thing she said that I loved was that, let's see, it's here. We are not a social like service agency.
Right.
We're not here to give food, to give, to find you. I mean, all those things happen, but when the focus is more on structural racism, structural classism, and social change, it's such a different dynamic.
Yes.
And then it's about, empowering the people who are coming in instead of like, oh, we'll help you because you're in such a bad way.
Exactly.
Like it's your fault,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing that I really admired about Michael Ann is that she would look at someone like me, for instance, and she would see so much, she would see beyond the current circumstance. She would see so much inside of a person. She had that ability, and she would encourage people to use their voice and to speak up. And she used to tell me a lot of times, and I've learned so much from her, and I've become such a different person because of her, but she would tell me to just be more assertive, fight for what you want. Michael Ann was a force to be reckoned with, and I mean, people knew that, that she was a threat to, any kind of injustice, you know. So she was a powerhouse, and I will always hold her dear to my heart and remember just so many things that she's done and she's said, and how she just stood up for social justice. Michael Ann is the epitome of what social justice is. That's how I see her through my eyes. And so many others.
She talked about making an analysis, like learn what this big picture is about. And I mean, she made big changes. Not she alone, all of you. But the whole thing with the city council. And changing it from just being at-large council members to ward-related, different neighborhoods. That was something. And some of the other things. And maybe you haven't seen it in a while, but she mentions you. In the interview, because she said something about that you had a college degree and she didn't have a college degree, and that was. I think the question was, where is your staff from? And some come from within and come up, and that you had been an intern first, or what?
Yes. So,
how did you get there?
When I first came into the knowledge of Arise, I actually had a friend who was fighting a police brutality case, and so I went to one of the rallies, and because Arise was just on the scene every step of the way, supporting my friend through his case. So I said, wow, this is great. You know, I wanted to be a part of this. So years later, when I went to Elms College for my bachelor's degree, and we had to complete an internship, I said I want to complete my internship at Arise, because I've seen them do just such great work, and I found out later that even Arise was involved in my earlier life, and I had not known it, because when we were displaced and homeless with my mother, she would go to Arise to get food. You know, so I didn't know where the chicken she would bring home was coming from. It was actually coming from Arise. So Arise has always sown into my life since I was younger.
So did Michael Ann know your mom? Probably not personally.
Not personally, but I'm sure she's seen her.
Sure.
You know,
yeah. Wow.
Well, she, back then when, you know, my mom was getting food from there, she didn't know her, but she, you know, since I've been involved as an organizer, she's known my mom, and they have a nice relationship,
How long have you been working there?
So I started as an intern, I believe, in 2015 or 2016, and then in 2017 they hired me as a homelessness organizer.
Okay. And tell us, you know, like some of the cases that you're working on, or what kinds of, you know, problems you address, or
oh my
how
goodness.
you help people.
So, you know, my role there as a homelessness organizer is to advocate for people who are in need of shelter, but they've been denied by the state. And so they come in with their denial letters, and I negotiate with the state agency to help them become eligible, or I help them navigate through different resources to gather up required documentation. You know, I just walk them through.
Sure.
So it could be something as simple as someone needing an ID, but they don't have the money or the resources, so I will help them gain access to those types of requirements, and then they will go back and reapply, and most of the time they are accepted into shelter after, you know, advocacy and help through Arise.
Yeah. So we're taping this show in Greenfield, and I think it's really cool that you came from Springfield all the way up here. But I think that some of the problems that happen in Springfield are a little more universal. They're not just that's Springfield and we're in Greenfield, so we never have those problems. But like, can you talk about times when there's been acute problems that you've had more work to do? Like, I don't know, something about when there was the hurricane, or...
Oh yeah, so during Hurricane Maria, we've helped a lot of people with hotels and stuff during that time, and we've linked them to family resource centers, and we had a family who was suffering from domestic violence, and they were trying to send her back to Puerto Rico, and they were asking her to provide all of this documentation, and Puerto Rico was just, I mean, it was just a mess back there. There was no way she could obtain her documents, and so she just kept on being given the runaround until finally she felt like she just wanted to give up, and she said, I'll just give my children to the state.
Oh my gosh.
It was that bad because she felt like there was no hope. So we were trying to push for her to get into a domestic violence shelter, but there were no openings. And we actually called state to state to see if anyone had any space for this family. And it was hard for her to get into shelter because of not having the documentation.
Wow.
So finally, we reached out to some folks in Rhode Island. Now, this was after about a week. We had depleted all of our hotel funds. Wow. Michael Ann had even taken them into her home for a few days. And, you know, that's why I love Michael Ann, too. So she's just, you know, she did what she had to do. She didn't go, you know, she wasn't just for protocol, you know.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to do from your heart,
Exactly.
you know. And that's what she did. And then, you know, finally they got into shelter. And the mother's face just lit up.
Wow.
And it's such a difference, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get a sense that when you're helping them through all these obstacles in the system, that there's also kind of, are you talking about like the system being messed up? Are you, you know, helping them see the bigger picture?
Oh, yes. So the first thing that we let them know is that, you know, this is not your fault, you know, because there should be better services to help people who are in these types of situations. There should be, you know, more access to resources. Right. So we let them know, you know, the system, the government should be better, you know, like there should be more for people who are going through, and that if there were better services or better help out there, a lot of people wouldn't give up.
Right.
You know, they will hold on.
Right.
And they will have more hope. Right. So,
the self-blame, the stigma, all of those things. It's so much blaming the victim now.
Right.
I mean, there were times like back in the Depression that everyone could have hard luck.
Exactly.
You know, and it was seen as somebody's down on their luck. But now it's all about blaming that you should be doing more. One line that came from the interview, she says, you know, people say you should pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but you have to have boots.
Exactly.
And you have to have straps. And I never heard that before. It's so brilliant.
Yes, very powerful.
Yeah, it's very powerful. Wow.
Yeah, so it's like when people are in these situations, we always let them know that no one is exempt from becoming homeless. You know, you can think your life is just, you know, wonderful, and you're only one circumstance away from becoming homeless.
Yeah.
You know, it can be someone in your family can suddenly pass away, and they could have been the main provider, and then you fall back. And we've seen these types of situations. So that's why I always, you know, really put out there, never look down on someone who's down on their luck, because it could be you. Right. You know, and you never, you know, misjudge the situation, you know, or, you know, just don't be so judgmental. We all, you know, could come up on hard times or just experience something that can just knock you off, knock you from your feet right down on your behind. You know, so, and a lot of people are blessed to make it out of the situation, because it's hard once you become homeless. It's not easy to get out of that situation. You know, there's so many rules and so many policies that it's almost like they're made to keep people down once they're down. You know, you have to go through, you have to go over hurdles just to get services that will help you provide your basic needs.
Yeah.
You know, so
we're moving into winter. And how are you preparing people? Are there enough shelter beds for people in Springfield, and how are they getting prepared?
no, there's not really, and a lot of so what we do is when we know that cold weather is approaching, because we pay attention to the weather, we let people know where they can go for shelter. We often refer people to Friends of the Homeless. That's, you know, the most popular place that we refer people to.
And that's a shelter?
It's a shelter in Springfield, and it's for single people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
DHCD is for families.
Okay. Yeah.
So what our homelessness committee has done is we started a campaign about the cold weather and the policy that is in place. So before we started working on this campaign, Springfield had a response plan with the temperature of 10 degrees before they will go out and find people who are homeless, you know. So they have like a team that goes out and search for people on those cold days. So the response temperature was only 10 degrees with a negative wind chill factor of 15 degrees. So we said that has to be changed because those are freezing temperatures, and we have lost people in the past from freezing in the cold. So myself, along with the homelessness committee of Arise, we sent out letters to the city council, and then we sent out more letters to Health and Human Services about increasing the response temperature. And it was a long fight, but we finally got them to raise the response temperature to 20 degrees.
Wow, that still doesn't seem very, warm enough. Because things happen at 30 degrees.
Exactly. So our proposal,
wind chill, too.
So our proposal was 32 degrees. And I have hope in them that they will increase it, but I understand that it does take, for them to have the right amount of staff, because they will have to go out more often if it's increased. But so we're going to keep on pushing for that.
That would be good. That would be good. So what? Well, I mean, we've been talking about so much, but over your time at Arise, can you think of some of the lessons that you've learned, in particular about organizing?
So about organizing, you have to be an influence to the people, to the community. You can't just go out there and say, okay, let's make a change. If they don't see you out there already trying to make a change, people like to come on board when they see you active in the community. So I would just say, let people see the good that you're doing first.
And in that, I would imagine, too, is sort of making a relationship, getting trust between you and the person.
Yes. So when they see us working in the community and, having events that we invite them to, we engage with them, and they're more apt to just join in, you know, and we welcome them, you know. Arise is a non-judgmental zone. You're safe here.
Yeah.
You know, no one's going to judge you because you have purple hair, you know. Some of the staff have purple hair. You know, we have, you know, tattoos and everything. So you're just, you know, you can feel comfortable coming in and being yourself, you know, and it's very important to be who you are.
Yeah.
Yes. So.
Wow. Well, I wanted to also ask you when I was there for the poetry workshop, I met your son.
Yes.
And I know that there's a really interesting story about how you became a mom.
Oh, yes.
Do you want to share that?
Sure. I literally, okay. So you know how when a woman becomes pregnant, she has time to prepare for motherhood. You know, she has 9 months. You know, they have the baby shower. She gets the clothes and everything. The aunties buy stuff. Well, in my case, it was different.
Yeah.
I became a mother literally overnight when I was asked to babysit a baby boy. He was only like 1 at the time, a little over 1 at the time. And I was asked to babysit, and no one came back to get him. So,
Wow.
you know, so.
So when did you realize, like, oh my gosh, he's here to stay?
Yeah, so a week turned into 2 months, 2 months turned into 6, 6 months turned into 2 years, and 12 years later,
Wow.
he's just mine. We're just mother and son. We're just a family.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and he came into my life at a time where, you know, I was going through some dark times. I was depressed. I was in a bad relationship, you know, coming out of a bad relationship. And so, you know, I was also going through some self-esteem issues. I was just broken, you know. So at that time, I had to make myself better to care for him, you know. So I went back to school. Everything that I did was for him.
Yeah.
And then I actually came to I had like an epiphany that although I'm doing this for him, I need to do it for myself too. So caring for him just helped bring me to another place in life. It helped me value myself more, you know, and even the stuff that he said to me, you know, like I love you, and you know, you're such a great mom. It just let me be able to self-reflect and say, you know what, I am a good person. I am a good mom. I am, you know, I do have worth, you know, so.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what that has done for me.
That's how that happened. Yeah.
Yes.
He wrote some poetry that day also.
Oh, yes, yes. He's a very gifted child. He thinks beyond his years, and he's very thoughtful, and he has such a brilliant mind.
Wow.
Yeah, like even his memory is like, I say that it's advanced. He can see a movie once and just, he can repeat the lines the next time he sees it. He can just, I'm like, how do you remember that after only seeing it one time? So yeah, he's an awesome kid.
And how old is he now?
He's 13.
13.
Yes.
So you've had him about 12 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to check in. Is there anything else you would like to talk about or share about your work or yourself or?
Yes. So, when I was at Elms College, we had this group class. They were teaching us how to facilitate groups, and from then I started an empowerment group.
Wow.
Which when I came to Arise, I wanted to, you know, have that same group.
Yeah.
And so the group is called Beauty and Empowerment. So, but the beauty is not spelled like B-E-A-U-T-Y. It's actually the words B-U, B-U-T, and empowerment. And,
So cool.
I wanted to stress the importance of, us being ourselves. And beauty is not what we just see what's promoted on TV, so I would like to redefine what true beauty is, and that's just being your true selves.
Yeah.
No matter who you are, what walk of life you've come from, no matter your skin color, we're so used to seeing billboards. I mean, things are starting to change now, but back in the day, even when I was growing up, what society defined as beauty was someone that had white skin, blue eyes, blonde hair.
Totally.
And so I just want to put that message out there that we're beautiful as how we were created to be. And I also, the group was also created to unify women in today's society, where we see on social media and on reality TV women just pitted against each other, arguing over a man and fighting and stuff. So I want, to let women know that we are to be unified. We've struggled enough throughout the years. We couldn't even vote for a while.
Right.
So we need to be unified and help build each other up, help empower each other, give each other encouraging words. It's hard to be a woman.
Yeah. To get valued for all the mothering and
yeah.
I mean, the idea of divide and conquer. It's divide women from each other, divide people who are poor from each other when they're, depending if they're black or white. All the ways that if we were more together, we would have so much more power.
Right.
But it's that coming from society, coming from all the messages, the media, all of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like.
So how many are in your group?
Well, so we did sessions. There were 10 women, and so we stopped the sessions, but I'm going to offer it as a class at the Truth School.
Oh,
so
wow.
The next spring semester, the upcoming semester, the class will be offered through that.
Do you want to just say a little about the Truth School? Give a little shout out.
Oh, so shout out to the Truth School. It's been just amazing, all of the classes. If you just look through the catalog, the different types of classes that they have, that, different topics that you can learn from and just have meaningful discussions about things that really affect people.
Sure.
And I think it's important for everyone to get involved,
Yeah, I think it's such an important thing in our whole valley, from Greenfield all the way down to Springfield, Holyoke, Chicopee, and that all the classes are free.
Yes.
But all the trainers get paid.
Yes.
That's very good.
It's wonderful.
So it's the Truth School for Social Change Leadership.
Yes.
And actually, Andrea Vazian was another person that I interviewed on my show, so we talked about
wonderful.
But another aspect of it that I have noticed is, like me coming down to your place for the workshop, all of a sudden now I know about Arise, and I meet you, and now we're here in Greenfield. It's like really networking broader than our small little communities.
Exactly. Yes.
It's really important.
It is. It is.
I guess I'm sorry I didn't ask you to bring a poem to read to us that you had written. But if there's any little thing you remember?
I actually did just bring the poem. Yes.
Do you have it here?
I have it here, but it's in my bag.
Oh,
If we
okay.
can,
Maybe we can get someone to help us.
yes.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, so I thought maybe I should bring this
That's
the
so
poem, the same one
smart.
that I read at the true
Oh,
school
great.
training.
Okay.
So yeah.
It's right on that side. Yeah.
I have notes written on the back. But
Yeah.
That's okay. Okay, so this poem is it's about the advocacy I was explaining about the mother from Puerto Rico who we had a hard time accessing services for her because of her documentation. So, and I never even put a title to the poem. I just wrote it because I was feeling so strongly about it, the situation. So, I guess I can start now.
Good.
A mother with 4 walked into the door. They placed their backpacks down on the floor. The mother looked down, her head hung low, as she explained that they had nowhere else to go. She fled Puerto Rico with her daughters and son, 'cause domestic abuse had her on the run. Battered, abused, even held with a gun, she came to the States to start back at square one. We offered advice to try and help her. We suggested she apply for emergency shelter. Come to find out, she already had applied, but the letter in her hand said that she was denied. Every time she looked at her children, she cried, because a roof over their heads she could no longer provide. Myself, as well as the whole Arise staff, we strategized and advocated on her behalf, quite sure we'd get her in after phone calls and an email. So for the night, we placed her in a motel. One night actually turned into 4, until we couldn't provide a motel anymore. We'd ran out of funds. We were dry to the bone. So Michael Lambusi took them into her home.
Oh, there you go.
We kept contacting the heads of the agency and soon became appalled with their blatancy. We couldn't believe the response of these people as they asked for her documents all the way from Puerto Rico. Their request was absolutely insane. They seemed to have really lost their brains because due to the recent hurricane, her documents were impossible to obtain. From then on, it didn't seem to get any better. They even refused a third-party letter. By then, we were all at the end of our ropes. Each place we inquired for shelter said, nope. The mother of 4 began to lose hope. These are her exact words, and I quote, "I'm going to give my children to the state." She cried because she no longer knew her fate. It became more difficult for us to advocate with no available DV shelter in the whole entire state. We searched out of state, Connecticut, New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, still no good report. As the families' lives were in a crumble, suddenly was a light at the end of the tunnel. There was a reason for everyone to start smiling when we received a call that there was shelter in Rhode Island. As the good news came to the mother's ears, her eyes began to fill up with tears. She finally was able to let go of her fears and live in peace after all the years.
Wow.
So
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, the rhyming is sort of a surprise, but you capture it so well. You describe it so well.
Thank you.
So, Johnie, thank you so much for coming and doing
it was
this
my
with
pleasure.
me. I really love getting to know you better
Oh,
and all
me
the
as
work
well.
you're doing.
Thank you.
And I also would like to give a thanks and a shout out to the Greenfield Community Television, who is helping us with the taping of this show. And see you next time on Going Deeper.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, when I was a little boy sitting on my mama's knee, well,